Guys, take a seat. We need to talk about an old and very wealthy friend who suddenly lost touch with reality. Do you remember when every laptop had that little blue sticker, Intel, inside? That wasn't just a logo, it was a badge of quality, a seal of the gods. If you had Intel, you were the king of the party. If you had AMD, well, your friends looked at you with pity, like a guy who showed up to a Formula One race on a lawnmower. But over the last few years, the giant stumbled, and then again, and again. Today, Intel isn't the Avengers of the tech world. They're more like a retired boxing champion who can't remember where he left his keys, while young athletes are beating the absolute life out of him. How did a trillion-dollar company manage to lose it all? Let's find out. Chapter 1. The Era of Arrogance. When Intel ruled the world. Let's go back to 2010. Intel was an absolute monopoly. They had so much money and power, they could have released a processor made of potatoes and people would have bought it, simply because there was no other choice. They worked on the TikTok strategy. 1 year, new architecture. 1 year, new process node. The clock worked perfectly. Intel felt like a Ferrari on an empty track. Why hurry? Why take risks? They got lazy. They released the same 4 cores and 8 threads, year after year. A 5% increase in speed? Oh yeah, that was a revolution. In reality, they were just milking us like a herd of obedient cows. While they were celebrating in expensive restaurants, in the shadows, a massive, red, heavy sledgehammer was being forged. Chapter 2. The 14-nanometer trap. Why the giant froze. And now, welcome to technological hell. In 2014, Intel was supposed to move to 10 nanometers. But something went wrong. They got stuck. For a long time. Think about this. They used the same 14-nanometer technology for 7 years in a row. They just kept adding plus signs to the name, like a student trying to fix a failing grade on a report card. 14 nanometer plus, plus plus, plus 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 mega hyper plus. It was like trying to squeeze the last drops of juice out of a lemon that dried up last month. While Intel fed us marketing fairy tales, the world moved on. The Taiwanese company TSMC started pumping out 5-nanometer chips. It was like trying to sell a steam engine in the era of Tesla electric cars. The giant stopped walking. It just stood there and sweated. Chapter 3. AMD's Revenge. The sledgehammer called Ryzen. And then, Lisa Su enters the stage. 2017. AMD was on the brink of bankruptcy. They had just enough money in the bank for a bag of chips and a bus ticket home. And then, boom! Ryzen processors. This wasn't just a product. It was a middle finger pointed directly at Intel's face. For the same price, AMD gave people 8 cores when Intel was still offering 4. Gamers and creators just lost their minds. Intel, which had kept us on a starvation diet for years, suddenly found itself playing catch-up. Imagine the faces of Intel's executives when they realized their elite processors now looked like old cassette players next to an iPhone. They tried to answer. They pushed clock speeds. They made processors consume so much energy that the electric bill looked like a phone number. But it was too late. The throne was shaking. Chapter 4. The core of the disaster. Instability and melted trust. But the real mess started recently. 2024 and 25. The 13th and 14th generations of Intel Core. Raptor Lake. Sounds cool, right? Like a predator. In reality, this predator started eating itself. The processors started just dying. Blue screens of death, game crashes, total instability. Imagine you pay $600 for a top-tier i9 and it works like a cheap tablet. And what did Intel do? They were silent. For months. They said, "Oh, it's just the BIOS settings." No, guys, it was a flaw in the very structure of the chip. They were pushing way too much voltage into it just to beat AMD, and the chip literally burned out at work. Trust is a tricky thing. It's hard to build, but very easy to turn into ash. And Intel handled that brilliantly. Chapter 5. Apple's betrayal and the ARM revolution. And then came the backstab that no one expected. Or did everyone? Remember when Apple used Intel processors in their MacBooks? Those were hot, noisy bricks you could fry an egg on. In 2020, Tim Cook said enough. Apple released their M1 chip. This was a catastrophe for Intel. It turned out that the small ARM architecture, which used to be only in phones, could destroy powerful desktop processors in energy efficiency. Apple laptops started running for 20 hours on a single battery while staying ice cold. Intel, meanwhile, was releasing ads mocking Apple. It looked like an old man trying to prove his rotary phone was better than a smartphone. Major clients started leaving. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, everyone started making their own chips. Intel was suddenly left alone in an empty room. Chapter 6, The Last Stand. Can Intel survive 2026? So, where are we now? Intel changed their names. Now we have Core Ultra. They're building new factories in Germany and the US. They're trying to jump onto the AI revolution train. Will it help? There's a chance. But now they don't just need to do okay, they need to perform a miracle. Because the world isn't waiting for Intel anymore. The world is moving forward with NVIDIA, AMD, and Apple. Can the blue giant reclaim the crown? Or are we watching the slow sunset of a legend? Let me know in the comments. Do you still believe in Intel? Or is your next PC going to be on the red side? And if you think the CPU wars are brutal, wait until I tell you how NVIDIA turned from a company for gamers into the actual ruler of the planet that even Google is afraid of. Click the next video. It's going to get even hotter. See you there.